I'm here to oppose the permitting of the Line 5 Wisconsin segment relocation project on the grounds of insufficient environmental data informing the project, potential environmental damages as a result of the project, and the project's threat to Mashkazivi's tribal sovereignty. As Lifuka stated in their own statement on this case, the permits for this project were granted based on incomplete and insufficient reports on the hydrological impacts of pipeline construction. The proposed reroute will cross over 100 waterways, including Class 1 trout streams that are safe havens for hundreds of wetland species, including those threatened and endangered by construction projects just like this one. Myself and a number of volunteers spent a considerable amount of time this summer surveying for these species. I personally visited 3 sites where the pipeline construction had been proposed, at the crossings of the White, Marengo, and Brunsweiler rivers. On the White River, we followed a pair of bald eagles for 2 miles and found a tiny population of showy lady slipper on the northern bank. This is a species of special concern in Wisconsin and considered threatened or endangered elsewhere in its range. On Marengo, we encountered more eagles and great blue herons. At the bend where Enbridge had proposed clear-cutting trees in order to perform horizontal directional drilling under the river, we found a stand of sacred grandmother cedars, most of whom would be felled by the construction. On the Brunsweiler, we were greeted by curious cedar waxwings of the construction crossing, floating between the alders and the willows, which create preferred habitat for species such as the state-threatened wood turtle. I will add that a fellow volunteer observed a wood turtle this summer, who they affectionately named Micanac, on the Potato River, about a half-mile downstream of the proposed construction site. Downstream of the Brunsweiler, we found healthy populations of crayfish and 2 baby snapping turtles alongside many medicinal plant species. All of these species and more will be seriously impacted or forced to leave the river during the construction, which will displace sediment and accelerate erosion even with the horizontal directional drilling technique, which will also risk contaminating each waterway with Enbridge's proprietary blend of drilling fluid, the environmental impacts of which are still understudied. Further, at each of these sites, and according to Enbridge's own surveys, a number of non-local beings, or so-called invasive species, have already been recorded. A major driver contributing to the spread of these species is habitat fragmentation, which occurs from construction projects just like what Enbridge is proposing. Both habitat fragmentation and the spread of non-local beings are considered 2 of the 5 drivers of the nature crisis that has been occurring across the globe for decades, if not centuries. The permits issued by the DNR hold 28 conditions specifically regarding so-called invasive species, and another 4 regarding threatened and endangered species, but not species of special concern. These conditions reference best practices in the eradication of non-local beings and mitigation of their spread. However, these best practices are based on less than 100 years of Western research in conservation and restoration ecology, which is gradually becoming more widely acknowledged as ineffectual in comparison to indigenous-led and collaborative methods of land stewardship. Some have claimed that the proposed relocation project successfully respects the Bad River Band's tribal sovereignty, decommissioning a segment of Line 5 currently trespassing on tribal lands. It is true that this project is located entirely outside of Bad River Reservation, but entirely within the greater watershed of the Bad River herself. As such, all impacts of the construction project will wash into the Bad River Band's tribally held lands, threatening their own community's resources. In the short term, this will look like impacts on water and sediment quality. In the medium term, this could look like the accelerated introduction of non-local beings washed downstream, threatening native and naturalized species. In the long term, this could look like crude oil spills that could contaminate the entirety of the watershed within a matter of hours, threatening the health and lives of all beings, human and other than human, residing within the watershed. This is a clear threat to Mashkazivi's rights to steward their lands and maintain their cultural lifeways' reliance on the health of their local ecosystems. I urge the court today to consider the pattern of inconsiderate land management that has led to our current and accelerating environmental crisis, and how projects like the Line 5 relocation project directly perpetuate these injustices in both indigenous and environmental rights.